Kalista Flex is the most consistent comp in the new patch, and German player Sologesang used it to shoot up straight to rank 1 in one day. Combining our games, today I'm going to teach you how to master Kalista Flex, including Kalista's game plan, best items, matchup-based positioning, augments, and 8 flex boards you can learn to play like a challenger. Let's go! Kalista is a 4-cost ranged AD carry. Her traits are Multi-Striker, giving her a chance to attack 3 times instead of once, and Fairy, giving her a crown that increases her damage amp after she hits 12 times. Her ability makes her attacks embed spears into her targets, also throwing at the 2 nearest enemies every 3 attacks, which ticks with Multi-Striker. At her 70 mana cast, she will deal physical damage to enemies for each spear in them. This is the standard board you should aim for at level 8. If you're looking to keep it simple and only go for one build, this is it. Our main 2 tanks are Nasus, a Pyro Shapeshifter, and Rakan, a Fairy Preserver. Nasus heals himself while Rakan shields your team. Pick one of these units to itemize as your main tank, usually whichever one you hit first, with a slight preference for Nasus. Next is Nico for Witchcraft Shapeshifter, which makes Nasus tankier. Nico's ability also provides a stun and a bit of healing to her 3 nearest allies. Nico can be swapped out for Morgana for Witchcraft Preserver once you hit her, and at 9 you can add Briar in to return Shapeshifter. Nico 2 is usually better than Briar 1 due to the healing, although Briar's ability does provide an AoE stun. Next is our melee carries. Fiora is our main secondary carry as a Warrior Witchcraft. Her ability makes her jump backward, reducing incoming damage, then sweeps through the most enemies within 2 hexes, dealing tons of physical damage. Her traits aren't very significant, giving her some stats, but they do get activated by the board. Akali provides Pyro, Warrior, and Multi-Striker, and Jax provides Chrono and Multi-3. Jax should be replaced by Camille as soon as you find her, who can provide damage onto backliners and a short stun. Our backline is Zilean, who provides Chrono and Preserver and stuns his target. Finally, Kalista rounds out the comp as our carry. Your level 9 version of the comp simply swaps out Jax and Nico and places in Camille, Morgana, and Briar. Plus ones after that are Bard for Preserver and useful legendaries. Because of her ability in Multi-Striker, Kalista's best and priority item is Rageblade, giving you stacking attack speed with each attack. Second, you need a source of armor shred, either Last Whisper on Kalista or even Shroud on your main tank or Fiora. If you have that on someone else, you can opt for red buff for anti-heal or a second Rageblade. This works well because Fiora actually doesn't need any bows. Kalista's third item should always be the Fairy Crown, giving 30 AD and 25% damage amp. The first Rageblade is mandatory on Kalista. Let's do some math. Rageblade gives 15% attack speed and 5 per auto attack, and Multi-Striker has a 30% chance to triple your attack. This means on average, every 3rd-ish auto attack will proc 3 times, meaning Rageblade will give a total of 40% attack speed after just 3 autos, already matching the speed of Red Buff and base Gambler's Blade. This happens within 3 seconds even if you hit no multi-attacks, and can be as fast as 1 second if you do. Gamblers with 30 gold, the highest base attack speed gives 70%, getting outscaled by Rageblade Kalista within 6 regular attacks. Remember that each 3rd attack embeds spears and 2 extra enemies, so a ton of attack speed is fantastic for Kalista. Your tank items are flexible with no best in slot requirements. It's a good idea to build a Sunfire unless you have Red Buff, and an Even Shroud unless you have Last Whisper. Any other tank items are fine, with Redemption and Warmogs being great for Nasus' Shapeshifter bonus, although that requires a ton of belts. Stoneblade is okay, but you want Fiora to be in the front line so she doesn't waste time walking up, so it's better to shove everyone in the front. This means you can't solo frontline for the Stoneplate value. Fiora's items are a second priority after your tank, although the most important is Bloodthirster. It has a higher rate of lifesteal than Hand of Justice, and its higher AD and percentage health shield make it better than Gunblade. While less necessary, her second best item is Sterak's Gauge, giving lots of attack damage and survivability. The third item can be any bruiser or AD, with Edge of Night being really good for survivability in a lot of matchups. Camille is often our third carry who receives any extra items from late game rounds. She shares the same best items as Fiora, and oftentimes you just want to slap a Thieves' Gloves on her or your secondary tank. Morgana can also be a third carry or off tank, excelling at applying anti-heal from Morello or Red Buff, and accepting both AP and tank items. For augments, you can generally pick whichever ones are strong for the patch. If you haven't, make sure to check out tactics.tools, stats, augments, and sort by top 4 rate. You can use the Explorer later on and filter by Kalista and Fiora. Some honorable mentions are Unleash the Beast, which gives Sterak's Gauge for Fiora and gives her crowd control immunity. You can place another one on Camille or Briar or any other melee carry. We get wonderful value from Stand United, clocking in at 8 active traits. Augments that give items like Stimpack and Over Encumbered are great since you want to itemize both carries and your tank. While combat augments are best, we don't mind taking one econ augment, as this is a very expensive comp looking for 4 2-star 4 costs and capping with legendaries. Gold augment All That Shimmers is a good mix of both, as Mogul's Mail is still very strong after the nerf, especially with early shapeshifters. Additionally, this raises your interest cap up to 70 gold, so you can greed for more money. Gambler's Blade isn't advisable unless you can build it with Rageblade and even Shroud on frontline, so if you take Shimmer Scale Essence, plan for that. Please do not click Anger Issues in any comp. This augment is very weak and probably needs a remove. Emblem augments aren't very good on this board because we play a bunch of low benchmark traits. This comp is playable on any portal except the Spatula one, while ones that give extra items are great. This flexible playstyle is also a very good user of the Portal Champion delivery, which gives you random 4 and 5 costs later on the game. Let's talk about the positioning for this board, both in general and in different matchups. This is the most common positioning. Always try to have Kalista and Fiora aligned with your source of armor shred for maximum damage. You want to be on the same side as the enemy carry if you know you are stronger, as your carries can hit the backline. Nasus should be in the second hex from the corner as your tank. He should be directly in line with your carries, and he even deals some physical damage. Next to Nasus is Fiora. Fiora's ability sweeps through the most enemies within a 2-hex rectangular line. When your opponent is cornered with a strong frontline, this third from corner positioning is the most likely to cause her to dash into the backline, landing on or near the enemy's cornered carry. Once she's in the backline, she's likely to cast onto them, especially when there are multiple backliners together. While the third hex won't always get them, it's the most likely to. If the opponent is solo frontlining, you can position Fiora on the top corner to attempt to wrap or walk straight into their backline where she can tear them up. You know that if you do corner directly against a cornered carry, Fiora will be solo tanking their damage, so this isn't a good idea against burst carries like Veigar unless you have an Edge of Night. Rakan should go in the center, as his ability heals allies within 2 hexes on both sides, covering your melees. Nico can go in the right side pocket, second row. Her ability stuns the 3 nearest enemies and heals her 3 nearest allies. This can be useful against powerful enemy frontliners. Akali is a trait bot, so her position doesn't matter. If you were carrying her against cornered carries, her best slot is in the second from the corner, as she jumps on the furthest enemy in 3 hexes. This gets her to jump on the cornered unit. Jax can go in between. Once you replace Jax with Camille, place Camille in the second row corner, same side as the opponent carry, where Nico was. This keeps Camille safe from being targeted. Her ability lets her jump onto the lowest percent health enemy within 3 hexes. Your goal is to make their carry or nearby backliners the lowest percentage so that after killing her target, Camille will jump onto them and hopefully ult on. Place Morgana next to Camille. Her ability summons bats at each corner and side of the board, which fly towards her closest 4 enemies and hit whoever they run into. You can use this as chip damage so that Camille will hookshot onto the carry. Her ability also gives her a decent shield and she has 2 range, so she has no problem sticking in the second row. Briar can go anywhere as her ability has infinite range, always dashing onto the biggest clump. You just want to make sure she can get her cast off, so put her on the opposite side of the carry. For backline, Zillion's ability is a single target stun, so you can position him directly against key frontliners like main tanks or melee carries to try to get stuns off. The standard position for this is in the middle. Finally, Kalista should almost always be hard cornered, again aligned with Fiora. She can also provide chip damage for Camille onto the backline if there are no closer enemies. The few exceptions are to dodge Zephyrs and Assassins, or to focus fire a priority target like a hero augment carry or a main tank with Spark. If you believe you can kill them, you can position Kalista directly against them to raise your odds of winning. If you think they're too strong, position your carries against the weakest side to maximize unit kills and minimize HP lost. In most matchups, you want to be against the opponent's carry to try to kill them as fast as possible. There are a few exceptions. Let's get into details. The nightmare of this patch, Ahri likes to position a solo frontline Lily or Poppy with everyone else in the back and Ahri centered. This is because if you use our standard lineup positioning, your units will walk to the side of their tank. In this position, Ahri is actually able to hit multiple units at once with a single cast, as it goes forth and back in a straight line. To counter this, we want to separate our frontline Exile style. This forces Ahri to only hit one target as much as possible. Your fodder units, basically not carries, Nasus or Rakan, are likely to be killed by a strong Ryze secondary carry, so use them as Ahri cast bait early on. Make sure Fiora isn't Ahri's target until she can get damage done. Place her on the opposite side that Ahri will hit. If they mess up and corner a melee or don't place their other bastions correctly, they will walk up into your Fiora, giving her a straight shot to Ahri later. Fiora will often be caught by an opponent's wrap cover. If your opponent corners Ahri, simply place your carries on the opposite side. Edge of Night is extremely good for Fiora in this matchup, which you will probably see a lot. This also plays to Veigar, who can one-shot your Fiora if you're not careful. Veigar will always hard corner, so place your strongest tank and fodder on his side and try to walk Fiora past the solo Vex. The Ryze matchup is pretty standard. Ryze will hit his 4 closest units, which will often include Kalista after he kills your non-main tank units. You can consider centering Kalista and cornering Zillion as bait if you're having trouble. Just be mindful of where your armor shred is. Ryze comps usually don't have any threat to centered units, and this can even help you dodge a Nami wave. Rumble Hero Augment does a ton of AoE burst to melees, so try to isolate your strongest tank against him. His default position is hard corner as he wants to kill frontline and walk onto the back. Have enough melees to the side so that he can't walk into Kalista after killing your tank. Avoid having Fiora get hit, as often she will dash behind him, not getting hit by the flame. Try to get Kalista hitting Rumble as soon as possible to put the menace down. Against warriors and multi-strikers, we have a decent matchup. Focus fire their primary carry while being mindful of what they do. Akali's default positioning is second hex to jump on your cornered carry. You can try to avoid this, but even Akali 3 usually can't kill your Kalista 2 before she decides to dash onto someone else. Fiora should almost never reach your Kalista, but you can place your second row units on the opposite side so that Fiora doesn't dash through them onto Kalista. The same applies to Katarina, who targets the biggest clump. Isolate Kalista far from everyone else, and move your second row units to the other side as there's no backline to attack. Let's talk about our game plan. At stage 1, hold and need pairs and upgraded units, and strong 3 costs like Mordekaiser, Nico, and Swain that complete synergies. Our 2-1 augment can be any flexible, strong combat or econ augment. I usually just use tactics.tools and sort by placement here. Our early priority item slams are Rage Blade and any tank items, as this keeps us flexible. Rage Blade is a fantastic slam in the early game, as fights usually last pretty long. This comp prefers to win streak and save HP to make money, although lose streaking can get you bows for Kalista if you're missing them. Another good slam is Bloodthirster, as there are lots of comps with bruiser carries. If you don't play one, placing a Bloodthirster on a tank isn't great, but isn't terrible. Here's a tier list of my favorite item holders for this comp. Ranged carries are left, bruisers on the middle, and tanks are on the right. There are lots of caveats to this tier list. First of all, this is only the best item holders, as these units will go well with others to activate traits. Second, an upgraded unit is likely much better than an unupgraded one. Think about preferring units you have paired, especially if they're 2 costs. Third, 3 costs are much more expensive to hold and can cause you to lose interest, and we need all the gold we can get for level 8. Thus, you need to weigh how much more likely each 3 cost and upgrade is to help you win or kill units. This is why most of the 3 costs are so low on the list. Either they are utility based, too specific in trait needs, or are not good item holders. Scouting to see your strongest opponents can help you make this decision. I'll talk about my favorite openers. Units with emblems mean any unit with that trait is fine. Tristana is the best ranged carry because of her ability to utilize the Rage Blade and Fairy's Crown combo, as well as her high single target damage. Single target damage is better in the early game, as since fights are slow, we want to secure individual kills to stop abilities as fast as possible. Tristana and Rumble paired is amazing, and an early Katarina can also hold bruiser items and Fairy Crown well. Just pick whichever you have items for. Multi-Strikers is the easiest transition into Kalista, and Caston can hold both bruiser items and Rage Blade extremely well. 2-star Ashe can also hold Rage Blade well, while 2-star Jax carry is okay, but gets killed too easily in stage 3. You can play towards 5 multi or 3 multi in Eldritch. You can easily play the same board to carry Nyla as well, who is just as good at holding BT and Rage Blade. Caston wants to be frontline, 1 hex from the corner to ramp up, while Nyla has 2 range and can go second row. Shapeshifters are strong in general and can flex with any backline. Simply 2 shapeshifters and any 2 upgraded backliners is strong, especially Nico and Swain due to their abilities. Simply add more shapes in after you level. Another ranged favorite is Twitch and Frost Hunters, as 2-star Twitch is quite strong. Twitch's ability fully pierces and armor shreds, so try to place him opposite of the enemy carry for max damage. Nomsy theoretically deals more single target damage, however an issue with her is that if her cast kills an enemy, it immediately ends instead of connecting to a new one, losing a ton of your damage. Additionally, since her cast takes so long, she is less efficient at using Rage Blade. Still use her if she's your first 2-star over Twitch. If you play Kog'Maw, make sure you use your backliners left and right of him, as his ability will boost their attack speed. General good positioning with all these boards is to focus fire. Line up your ranged units diagonally from the corner, causing them all to target the same unit first. In the early game, you want to kill off units as fast as possible, and this will get it done. You can do this with melees and a strongest tank, or spread them to try to split damage amongst your frontliners, making them all live longer. Level to 4 at 2-1 if you had an upgrade, and 5 after Carousel if you're playing to streak. Then level to 6 at 3-1 if your opponents are strong, and 3-2 if not. If you're lose streaking, simply play your strongest board and sell to make econ. Usually you don't want to roll to stabilize as you need to save lots of money. Only do so if you have lots of pairs. Slowly transition into natural to upgraded 2 costs if you hit them. Go to 7 whenever you would have over 35 gold left, either 3-5 if you're rich or 4-1 if you're not. Your level 8 has 3 timings. 95% of games you want to be 4-2 at level 8, matching other 4 cost players. If you took an econ augment or are rich and low HP, you can go to 8 at 4-1. This also gives you first dibs on the level 8 pool, meaning you'll find Kalista and Fiora easier if you're contested. There will be rare games where you full win streak and aren't contested. You can then wait until 4-3 or after Carousel to go 8, where you'll have more money and better odds since other players already drew 4 costs out of the pool. Once you hit level 8, you usually roll down all the way to 0 to find as many copies of 4 costs as possible. Search for Kalista, Rakan, Nasus, and secondary carries, especially Fiora. 1 copy of each is generally stable enough for the next few rounds. You are stable on Kalista 2 and 1 2-star tank, slamming items onto whichever you 2-star first. If you're high HP, you can econ up before rolling down again at 5-1. If you're low HP, roll down every round and buy charms to save HP. Generally, you want to secure 2-starred Kalista, 1 tank, and 1 secondary carry before saving up for 9. In the late game, you additionally need to be spending gold rolling for combat charms, especially if you're low. Get to level 9 and find your legendaries and finish out the game. A brief bit about charms is that generally you should be buying all of them and that you naturally roll into, as they can boost your econ and help you streak. It's definitely worth it to buy combat ones if it means maintaining a win streak. Additionally, buying charms scales up Xerath's Arcana if you choose to play him later. At stage 4 and beyond, you can be more picky when you're rolling down since you'll see more charms. Generally, you want to buy 1 every round, and avoid ones that will grief you like Artifactinate and Polymorph. The lower HP you are, the more you're going to want a combat charm. Alright, we've covered everything you need to know if you're just looking to play the Kalista Fiora board. However, the strength of playing towards Kalista carry is how flexible she is. First of all, her items are very flexible in this meta, with Rage Blade being good on Ryze, Smolder, Jinx, Tristana, and Milio, and solid on AP casters. And early Rage Blade and tank item slams does not force you into any lines. Even a Bloodthirster Slam for Fiora is fairly flexible, with bruisers like Olaf, Briar, and other warriors being played. If, on level 8, you find 2 stars of other such carries, you can pivot into them instead without too much loss. If you do hit Kalista, let's run through some variations. While Fiora is preferable, you can splash Kalista with just about any frontline and duo carry. Our common core is Kalista, Rakan, Zilean, and 2 multi-strikers, with 1 being Chrono. We are free to mix and match the rest. Possibly the highest cap of this board is a Kalista-Xerath duo. Xerath provides true damage with his Arcana trait, powerful Ascendant Charms, and tons of damage when allowed to cast at 2 stars. This board should only be played on level 9 with tons of money or if you're winning the lottery on 8. Diana 2 is probably the most powerful frontliner in the game, taking Bloodthirster and AP or tank items, providing attack speed slows and tons of damage on enemies, and healing your team. However, Diana 1 is an extremely weak tank, so Rakan is usually still our main tank. Diana goes next to Rakan, allowing her access for a 2-hex biggest clump range. She can also be placed to wrap or walk directly on the backline like Camille. Tahm Kench does provide a 2-second stun within 4 hexes of his target, hitting them and everyone in between. Usually you can just slap him opposite of Diana and he'll get the job done. You can also compare the angle of your Tahm Kench to their furthest units, which will knock up as many people as possible. Usually you can just slap him opposite of Diana and he'll get the job done. Xerath can go anywhere because his ability targeting is completely random, so keep him safe in a corner like Kalista. This suddenly turns into an AP comp, so Shiv on Xerath and Spark on Diana is great. Diana, Morgana, and Camille can also easily take Fiora's bruiser items in a transition in. 4 Chrono Karma is a good transition board into Xerath. Karma is a damage over time AP caster and an excellent applier of anti-heal. Play Akali until you find Camille and swap her in for 4 Chrono. You can play Cassio for Encanter early on, but you don't need Encanter later. The rest of the board is the same, adding Morgana in at 9. Camille should take Fiora's bruiser items, and Morgana can take leftover bruiser and AP. Karma loves taking anti-heal and mana generation items for her ability, which spreads to unaffected enemies with each cast. Once you find legendaries, you can swap into Xerath for the ultimate cap. Milio is mostly seen as a support champion due to his ability generating items and damage amp for your team. However, at 2 stars with proper items, he can deal tons of damage to 3 enemies at once. Additionally, the item generation is very strong for your random legendary units. Here's a standard board, adding Morgana at 9. You'll notice our frontline is pretty small. You can swap out Zilean for Nasus and Briar. You can also easily elect to not play Fiora, move her items to Camille, and play any frontliner, for example Diana. Our goal with Milio is to play the strongest units possible to utilize the free items well. This ends up being very flexible. Instead of Karma, you can use Ryze as a transition piece into Xerath or Milio. This is an okay board, but expect to transition off of it, as finding both Ryze and Kalista 2-star in this meta is very difficult. In essence, don't roll down for 2-star Ryze. Ryze's best items involve attack speed, but he can hold whatever AP you have. We can sneak in Portal through Taric and Kassadin, although it's not necessary. Taric's ability attracts projectiles and gives him damage reduction, so stone plates are pretty good, although any tank items will do. Use Tahm Kench's Arcana bonus for now, giving us HP, and add in Preservers and a replacement for Ryze and Kassadin at 9. For an attack damage line, we can extend into Pyro and Varus. Both Kalista and Fiora are strong holders of Pyro Emblem. In this version we play Kalista and Varus duo, with main tank Nasus. You can play this board to go to 9, where you can add in Tahm Kench for Hecarim's Arcana bonus, giving AD and durability. You can end on this board or sell Kalista and Tristana for Smolder and add more blasters or legendaries. Smolder's best items are Rageblade and Pyro Emblem, just like Kalista, also adding Runons. Smolder 2 is most definitely stronger than Kalista. If you play this variation without a Pyro Emblem, Varus is quite weak. I would only use this as a transition piece if you can't find Fiora, and move his items somewhere else instead. If we miss Fiora, the first alternative is Gwen. This patch sees basically Temu Fiora, and should only be used as a transition piece into Diana, Morgana, or Camille. She holds her AP bruiser items well, and can be positioned on the side second row, as she has a 2-hex range. Her best in slot requires a blue buff, but our comp doesn't have a great holder of that, so slam whatever you have and transition off of her quickly. You can also play this 4 warrior variation, but you'll get outscaled pretty quickly, so go fast line with Gwen 2 and pivot off of this. Another item holder is Olaf, sharing items with Fiora. While we can Finish Frost with Swain, we don't have easy access to Hunter, so Olaf is a lot weaker as he needs either 7 Frost or 4 Hunter. Transition off of this as fast as possible by finding Fiora or Camille. In conclusion, Kalista is the most consistent and spammable comp on the patch, as it doesn't need hero augments, emblems, or super specific components. Being contested on 4 cost is a lot better than being contested on reroll. This is a solid top 2 comp that is excellent for climbing. Thanks for watching this extensive guide. If you like this format, let me know by dropping a like and comment which comp you'd like me to cover next. Shout out to Sologesang for the initial comp. You can check out his stream and comp sheet in the description below. I'll be getting guides in on TikTok, Reels, and YouTube Shorts soon too. Alright, I've talked long enough. See you next time, and climb on.